Hello and welcome to another episode of From the Dog's Mouth with Mike Leach, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. So, we thought that we were going to have Timmy Bowers on next, and then just out of the blue, it turns out that we had Coach Mike Leach who wanted to come back on the show. So, we're going to take that interview each and every single time. So, y'all already know who he is. He's turning into our close personal friend, much like me and Jeremiah. You know, it's the same deal, okay? So, former coach, former OC at Kentucky, former head coach at Texas Tech, Washington State, and now the head coach of our Mississippi State Bulldogs, Mr. Coach Leach. So, Coach, what you got to say to the people to start out this interview?
I'll tell you what, I just hope everybody's doing well, and we're in everybody has done the whole COVID thing for a long time, and then now we're in the middle of summer. So I just hope everybody's having a good summer. I hope they go out there and get to have a little fun in the midst of all of this, because I mean that's what life's all about. But be careful, don't get this stuff. And I hope those that have it recover quickly. But I mean, me being a football coach, I can't wait to get out there and start working. So, I mean, but that deal come at some point, and I'll be very excited when it does. But, it's a funny time because I always feel like I'm hurry up and wait. You know, it's like, okay, I got these tasks during the day, so hurry up and do them. And, okay, can you do the other stuff? No, not yet. So it's wait, you know.
All right. So, once again, glad to have you back on. And let's go ahead and go around the horn and talk to the guys. I'm going to start off with Coach Vivians, who looks like he's at Moss Point High School or something like that. He just got a fat head. What's up, Fat?
Not much, man. I am absolutely representing the home team today. But just glad to be here with everybody. Got me some good Wi-Fi going. So we're gonna have I think we have a pretty good, productive show. Looking forward to it. Just give a big shout out, quick plug, DL Sanders, Sunny Days, Shades. Check out on Facebook. Quick plug.
All right, bad boy, baby. So now we got Mr. Derek Thomas. What's happening down there in enemy territory down there in the mean streets of Red Stick?
Oh man, not much. Just glad to be on with Coach Leach again. You know, glad that he's giving us some of his time, and just thankful to have hear his thoughts on what we got to talk about today.
All right, bad boy, baby. Now, next person.
Oh boy,
this man is my close personal friend. This man is the very first person I met at Mississippi State University. This man was the first person that told us that we was going to expose LSU's defense in the 2003 game, which we totally did not.
Oh, no.
This man was the first person to tell me who Omar Connor was, because I had no clue who that guy was.
Omar Connor, baby.
Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Mr. Jeremiah Short.
How you doing, everybody? Just excited to come and talk with Coach Leach again today and just address, a myriad of topics.
All right, so we got that out of the way. So, wait a second. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Shanika McKinney. She is the person who made this shirt for me. It's red, black, say King, got the crown on it. I think that it fits me well. Follow me on Snapchat, King Arthur J. Okay, bad boy, baby. So, getting into the first thing. Kylan Hill, I'm going to paraphrase his tweet. He says that, he's tired of the flag and he's not going to represent the state of Mississippi anymore. People take that to mean that he's not going to play football unless the flag is changed. But then it turns out that more of a tempered response is that he's just not going to represent the state of Mississippi. Now, Coach Leach, we know that you all have thrown your support behind Kylan Hill, but what was the thought when you first saw that tweet?
You know, I support everybody's right to express themselves, and I think that there needs to be more of that in this day and age as far as people expressing themselves, because right now it's always tempting, people talk about political correctness and all this other stuff, and all that is somebody assigning somebody else their thoughts, and I'm not really into that. And so I don't think, I think anybody that, I think they should be able to express themselves. Now, obviously, there's things, you have to have a level of loyalty to your teammates. You got to be supporting of your teammates, your school, your coaches, that type of thing. But yeah, I think anyone's entitled to express themselves, and like all the players, I hope they play. If he doesn't play, we'll have somebody else play. I mean, it's about as simple as that. I mean, because a lot of guys want to play running back, but also I'm with Kylan from the standpoint I would like to see the flag change. The biggest reason I want to see the flag change is, why do you have a state flag? You have a state flag to unify the whole state, where everybody gets it behind and they get excited about it. And right now our flag, the Mississippi Mississippi state flag doesn't do that. And is 100% of the people gonna be excited about whatever state the flag is selected? Probably not. Somebody might wish it's a different, a different color or something like that. But you want one that the vast majority of people in the state are very proud of and would actually consider, if they moved to Europe or somewhere, having it on the side of their house just because they're proud of where they're from. And right now, we're not getting that out of the state flag in Mississippi. And so to me, it's just all very practical. You want something that people rally around. You want something that attracts business to your state, attracts education, it attracts athletics to your state. And right now, it divides people. And then I know there's a lot of layers to it. I know that it's very emotional, but if you just remove the emotion from the thing, which is probably impossible, just the practical matter is you've got a state flag. It's a state proud of their state flag. Well, the answer is not to the extent that it needs to be. It doesn't bring the whole state together, and the whole state doesn't wave it with pride. And so then you need something that better represents the entire state. And just my thoughts. And then the other thing that's a little troubling is, and I'm not sure what all schools, it hasn't flown over Mississippi State or Ole Miss for several years, since 2015 at Mississippi State. Well, if you're a state university and you're not flying the state flag because a significant number of people are troubled by it, something's wrong there. You got to get a different state flag.
All right. So, following the news the way that we do, we noticed that you all were in Jackson yesterday, rallying to get the state legislature to change the Mississippi flag. And then we have the threat of, the SEC saying that they're not going to let us play championships game within the state of Mississippi. Then the NCAA comes up behind us, and then we have this Kylan Hill tweet thing, and there's like a confluence of factors that is starting to put political pressure on the state of Mississippi. So what compelled you all, like what was the process like for you guys to say, hey, we all need to get together? We got Mississippi State, Ole Miss, USM, just about every university in the state of Mississippi coming together to rally against the flag. Like, what was that process like, getting you guys going down there to Jackson?
It was all very sudden, because, and I think the reason it was sudden is because, the legislature, significant members of the legislature have wanted to address this for quite some time. And there's been attempts, to address it and things like that. And I think that that is the way you change something at some point. I mean, it's got to be the voice of the people. So, it's either, in my opinion, you put it to the citizens of Mississippi and they vote on it, or else to the legislature. I mean, they elected the state congressmen, the state senators, and you have them vote on it. Well, they're in session, and so that was the first thing, and I think they wanted to get it done and take a shot at it before the session ended. Okay, and then so then when they put it on, I don't know all the details, but when they put it on the docket, in other words, you know, you go through a committee and then they decide they're going to vote on an issue, right? Well, then they decided. Well, so then everybody rallied and scrambled to Jackson so that we could have a presence and be heard. And, you know, went through, saw the Speaker of the House, the head of the committee, and the rest. And you know, and then had a press conference there. You know, just made a statement there in the Capitol. And I think, you know, just the opportunity to be heard, and hopefully it pushes it to where we develop a state flag that everybody can be very proud of. And you know, when you go to some other state, you say, hey, look at this state flag. This state flag in Mississippi. You know, our state flag's better than your state flag, and here's why. You know, I mean that's to me what you want to get out of your state flag, and then all for one for all. You know.
All right.
Well, Coach, this is Coach Vivian's down at Mars Point. But aside from what we went to Jackson for, you probably gave the best moment of the day. So, was this planned? Did it just when Kiffin walked up to you? Did you just something in your spirit said, let's just grab his beak and pull on it, or was it planned? You like, I'm gonna do something when he comes up. What got you there?
Well, we hadn't seen each other much the whole day. We talked, you know, we talked and we've talked on the phone before, and I thought we might see him more of the day, but we didn't. That's really the only time we saw each other. And then, of course, everybody's face was all covered up, and then he had a different colored mask, and I'm not big into the mask fashion. I mean, believe it or not, the mask I usually wear, I had an Adidas one there. I have this one here that I bought for $2 that has baseballs on it, of all things, because they sold it to me in order for me to get into the store. And then, but no, I don't know. He walked by, he had a good-looking mask on, and you know, I just figured I'd give it a tug, you know, and I also figured he's, you know, you got a crowd of people, some more uptight than others, and I figured he'd be a good sport about it, you know, and he was.
The rivalry begins.
Sorry to interrupt the interview, but it was a perfect time because you got us to the Capitol, AJ, and so while we were there already, before you left the Capitol, I wanted to make sure I touched on that.
Well, while we're talking about Kiffin, I did want to ask this because, you know, we all know that you guys are friends. You know, when we both name respected head coaches of the institutions, much was made about your friendship. But this is a heated rivalry in the state of Mississippi. The head coaches aren't really known for being friends. How do you think your friendship with Coach Kiffin is going to impact the rivalry? And are you looking forward to sending him home with losses?
Well, it's not like we hang out every day, but you know, you go to the coaches meetings and you know, and I guess this is a tough enough profession, coaching, that you hope you're friends with all of them. I'm not, but you know, but honestly, most of them, I would say most coaches that I know anyway, I'm pretty good friends with, and you know, because you have that common struggle. But no, we definitely have to send them home. You know, we got no, this is all about Mississippi State total domination, no doubt.
Okay.
Good answer.
Excellent. All right. So, now we're kind of going over into the deep end of the pool. Bear with us. All right. So, we know about the tweet and it was very controversial. I don't think that we have to rehash what the tweet was about. However, what are some things that you're kind of looking to do to reestablish the trust of some of the members of the community who were offended by the tweet?
You know, all I can really do is just be myself. You know, I mean, you know, so some, you know, different people get offended by a variety of things or have sensitivity to different things, and you know, and you know, it's difficult for me to read everybody's mind, you know, but I just want to make sure that I'm sensitive of things where I can be. But the other thing is I think, you know, we've got to be careful about being oversensitive. I try to never be offended by anything. I mean, to me, it's just a distraction, you know, and almost always well, first of all, anytime, if I get offended by something, you know, it's just a distraction. One, I don't want to feel that way. Two, I don't want to give the other person the power to make me feel that way. Three, usually it was inadvertent. I mean, have people tried to insult me before? Yeah, sure they have, you know. If they do, then it's like, well, that's what they think, so what? And I move on, but I don't want to be distracted by it. And if somebody inadvertently does something, I don't want to alienate that person, because you can learn something from anybody. And so I try not to interrupt myself by being offended. Now, everybody's got their own approach and their own path on that, but you know, I just don't want somebody else to be able to have their hand on my feelings, you know. And I think that if you know, in football coaching, you can find a lot of things to be offended by. I mean, there's reporters out there trying to offend me right now if they get half a chance. You know, Big Gulp Dan Walken, he's trying to offend me right now if he can find a way, but he's going to be selling Big Gulps soon. And so we aren't going to have to worry about him forever. And I certainly would buy a Big Gulp from him. Why not? And then, no, I try to avoid it. I think that you communicate, you sort it out, and you try to make as comfortable a place for everybody as you possibly can. And because in the end, the more you can work together, the stronger everybody is. Just like that flag, you want a flag where everybody's proud of and everybody works together on it, and everybody you know, proudly waves it on behalf of the state of Mississippi, you know.
So, Coach, I hate to kind of interject here, but so kind of considering like what happened just recently happened with NASCAR, I don't know how familiar you are with that. And then honestly, we've had former players in the show, and then like a lot of fans, a lot of people obviously were very upset by the tweet. And I think we've even debated whether or not, like you said, whether it's a distraction or whether it really was anything what they would consider racist or anything like that. A lot of people felt that it was tone deaf. So do you agree? So do you understand where a lot of people are coming from, where they called it tone deaf, as far as just not thinking about really the fact that we're having such a big thing of the flag and symbols. Obviously, the noose is a symbol to a lot of people of something negative. So do you understand where people, I guess,
well, I do. I do, but you know, sometimes perceiving another's sensitivities is difficult. You know, I mean,
okay.
You know, I mean, like I said, I try to avoid being offended, but then, you know, like take my wife or one of my kids or something like that. I mean, they may be sensitive to something. Well, like everybody can think on their kids something, like, you know, that they're sensitive about, and everybody's got something they're sensitive about, you know, certainly on an individual level. And, you know, but unless you really know them, you don't, you know, you try to understand that, you try to figure out what that is. But, you know, this having a crystal ball and knowing it immediately, that's tough, you know. And so, and that's why I you know, I think that, you know, working with one another is the important part, because, you know, you're trying to get through it, not dwell on it, you know.
Mhm. And I think, Coach, go ahead, Derek.
Well, I was going to say, you said as far as working on things, and I was going to, Tyrone told me about your book about Geronimo, and I was reading about it, where you talk about how you utilize studying Geronimo as far as bringing people together, because, a lot of people were kind of felt divided by your tweet, and now you have on the forefront of real change in our state. And so talk about how, your study of Geronimo kind of helped you with your, I guess, mindset as far as bringing people together.
Well, Geronimo was a subject I was interested in since I was a little kid. When I was a kid, we had 3 television stations. We didn't have like 500. What station's this on? Well, it's on 320, 21 or something like that. I mean, we didn't have that. We had 3, and and when we were kids, we'd play cowboys and Indians in the backyard, and I always wanted to be an Indian. Once in a while, I wanted to be Daniel Boone, but I always wanted to be an Indian. And then Geronimo was my favorite guy because I was lucky to read some books on him at a young age, and so I was always fascinated. And then my book Swing Your Sword made the New York Times bestseller list, and which surprised us, I guess. And then, but it talked about my path into coaching, and they said, well, do you want to do another book? Simon and Schuster came to us and says, do you want to do another book? I said, sure. On what? They said, anything you want. And I said, anything I want. They go, well, maybe history or something. You like history, right? I'm thinking, yeah. I go, well, how about Geronimo? And then, of course, they jumped on it. And then, to me, the Apache Indians were, to me, the most, and if you think about the Native American culture, which I was exposed to early on and growing up in Sheridan and Cody, Wyoming, because there'd be the relics, the campsites, all the history and things like that, museums everywhere. And just, the ingenuity and survival skills and what their life was like was utterly amazing. And what they're able to achieve with a little was amazing. And in particular, Geronimo, I mean, with men, women, and children, would travel hundreds of miles, like over steep territory. And they had it all plotted out, too. They'd travel high, and they had like caches and caves with supplies along the way, and they could go very rapidly. And, their skills as far as hunting and riding and fighting, I mean, were just unparalleled. And you're talking about a culture that was kind of in a constant state of battle. For centuries, they battled Mexico. And then amongst themselves, there were different groups of Apaches, so this group of Apache, they may be at war with this other group of Apaches, whereas they're allies with another group of Apaches, And then after the Civil War, America started moving west, and as they moved west, then the Apaches are kind of getting squeezed from both sides. And so it was a very tough period. And then, of course, as a leader, Geronimo did some just amazing, incredible things. And they would start training these guys as kids. I mean, we all went to school. Well, a young Apache, he went to school too. He'd get up in the morning and, sometimes if the creek was frozen, they'd break the ice and they'd have them swim across a couple times before they could stand by the fire. They, would run miles up and down mountains, and sometimes they'd have to carry a mouthful of water as they ran just incredible distances and then spit the water out when they finished. And you had to be able to spit the water out. You know, they would sometimes they would have small stones as they run to stimulate the saliva gland, so that you know, they felt like that would help. They'd have little mock battles with arrows with blunted ends, like they'd put like like a little kind of a bag of dirt fastened to the end in leather, so it'd be like a blunt end. So as they're shooting the arrows at one another, nobody's getting hurt, you know. And then, I mean, just horseback riding, just all the skills that existed. It was really amazing. And so then, when we wrote the book, we tried to write all the good parts and none of the boring parts. And then, you know, one thing was we were tempted to get into treaties, but because there were a lot of treaties, but typically these treaties were broken before they were ever signed, you know, and so it was kind of more boring than it really carried the story or the history. You know, the Apaches were constantly placed, all right, here's your reservation here, this is your land. And then, you know, the American government would discover silver or something there, then they'd try to move the Apaches somewhere else, or they want to bring a railroad through or something like that. And so it was quite a struggle of great leadership and ingenuity, which fascinated me. But one of the first things that existed with me, you know, growing up, you know, in Wyoming, Wyoming's got a great culture of, as far as, you know, outdoors and that type of thing, and mountains, and, you know, all the stuff that goes along with the Old West, you know. But there was always, you know, the history of the Native Americans, which was fascinating to all of us. And one of the biggest museums in the United States on the subject is the Buffalo Bill Historical Center in Cody, Wyoming. And like there's relics from, you know, the Sioux Indians and Custer, and, you know, like Sitting Bull's tomahawk, and, you know, just like some incredible relics, you know. And so I was captivated by that. And then I go to college, and I'd broken my ankle my senior year playing football. As I'm bringing my ankle back, I took rugby for PE, and you know, and I didn't really know the rules. I had to learn. Figured I'd take the class and I'd learn the rules, you know. But I knew there was a lot of running. I knew that was good for my ankle, and I did want something as kind of my sports athletics fix, so to speak. And so in the PE class, they recruited me to play on the rugby team, and the instructor was, you know, one of the kind of the upperclassmen. I think he was working on graduate work. And he played on the team, but he was the instructor of the class. A guy named Vi Foy, and Vi was from Samoa, and then and at BYU there's a lot of the Polynesian culture, you know, Samoan, Tongan, Fijian, Maoris, that would be the, you know, the natives of New Zealand, and then of course you had New Zealanders and South Africans and occasional Australian, and we had a guy from Wales. Anyway, so I get out there the first day of rugby, and there's just some gigantic guys, and they're like Samoan and Tongan, you know. And to this day, and BYU is one of the best rugby teams in the history of America on the collegiate level. us and the University of California were almost like the Yankees and the Dodgers. Unless BYU
right, Coach,
caught them, unless BYU's caught them, BYU and Cal were like the Yankees and the Dodgers. I think Cal had won more national championships and BYU's won the most recently. But anyway, so I go out there with no exposure to the Polynesian culture, and other than seeing them on TV, and some really cool waterfalls and a really lush place to live. All of a sudden, I have a whole bunch of big Samoan and Tongan brothers, and rugby's a game where you might mix it up a little bit, and so.
So what kind of rugby player were you, Coach? Were you pretty good at playing rugby?
Yeah, I was one of the smallest guys that played. Back then I grew in college. Back then I was about 5'10", and I weighed probably 155, 160 pounds. But I could run and tackle. And then everybody has to pass. So in rugby, everybody runs the ball, everybody passes the ball, everybody tackles. Unfortunately for me, everybody kicks the ball. And I kicked like a typical American, which was not particularly well. And then, because, a lot of these guys will have a soccer background and things. So those guys from overseas, they can kick. And, but it's a type of thing. So if I'm running the ball and you're about to tackle me, I can kick it along the ground past you. And if I run and pick up the ball or somebody on my team gets it before you get it, they pick it up and keep running,
Okay.
And, so I got pretty good at the kicking it along the ground type of thing.
Okay.
But as far as am I the guy that's going to punt it way downfield? Hell no. I'm looking for the New Zealand guy behind me. I'm gonna pitch it to Mark, and Mark's gonna do the kicking, or else I'm gonna go over. Hopefully, hey, where's Paul? Paul was from South Africa. Where's Paul? We're going to pitch this to Paul. Hey, this ball's got to be kicked downfield. Here, where's Paul?
Speaking of punting,
and then if I couldn't find him, I'd have to try to run or pass my way out of it.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of punting and running and passing, we kind of want to transition onto football. So now you're back in Starkville, right?
No, I'm back in Florida. Here's the thing: is I've got a house under contract in Starkville, so we're waiting to get the loose ends done on that. My place in Washington sold right away. I've got a little cottage here in Florida, but it's outfitted with all the computer and rather than 2 suitcases of clothes, I've got clothes here. And then, so since I'm not allowed to talk to the players face to face, I can do this a lot easier here, Okay. I mean, I can do the meetings easier here, do the whole thing easier here. And so, we're just in that holding pattern, waiting until we can talk to, interact, and coach our players,
Okay. So, like, what kind of reports have you gotten as far as from the strength and conditioning? Because, with the players kind of being off for so long, just kind of getting them back into some type of football shape.
Yeah, we're in the process of that. I'll tell you, because what we're allowed to do in smaller groups, they enter and leave the building with masks. They get their temperature taken, and they can, in smaller groups, go lift and run. And the strength coach, is there to make sure that everything's safe and sound. As coaches, we're not allowed to watch or communicate with them, so we can't even walk through the weight room, which, to be honest, I think is sort of a dumb rule. But and it's kind of discouraging for everybody. And so, like, I did talk to, when I was in Starkville, I was there for a couple of weeks, and one-on-one would talk to the whole team, all the social distancing. And I talked to over 40 of them, one-on-one. And kind of in the office, and they're a distance away and that type of thing. And then, you know, to try to bridge that gap of getting to know everybody and keeping everybody fired up. But I'll tell you, this thing's had a funny effect because, you know, sometimes there's a drudgery to lifting and running. And, you know, but you go and lock these guys up and say you can't do anything. I'm proud to say it looks like our guys have been doing some things because they look like they're in decent shape. And then now that they get to work out, they've hit that with a vengeance. I mean, they're out there working hard. I mean, next off season, I'm tempted for a week or so. So no, you can't work out. No, can't go to the weight room. Can't go to the field and run because with the enthusiasm they have when they did hit it, I mean, you know, I mean, all of a sudden they're told they can't for a while. I mean, they were eager. They would have stampeded out there if you let them, you know.
All right, so the thing that we wanted to ask about was KJ Costello, you know, grad transfer coming in from Stanford and had a really good career over there. So we're wanting to ask you directly, how is he going to fit into our offense next season?
I'm anxious to know the answer to that myself, you know, because we haven't been able to practice with them, and you have to, you know, stack him up with everybody else. And really, with quarterback, it's who, you know, who elevates the offense the best and who can move the ball the best. And now I will say this, he's got the experience of having played for about 2.5 years. So I think that's a very important asset for us. And he's really embraced, you know, everything from meeting, studying, wanting to study the film, which of course we have to do the film on the computer. And then, and so he's really embraced that and is in Starkville, communicates with the other players, and everything I've heard as far as you know, when they do anything, he's really done an outstanding job. So I'm really anxious to have the chance to coach him. And of course, we played against him when he was at Stanford. We won those games, but I thought he looked really impressive. And then I've had a bunch of players from his high school, and since they've all done well. I mean, I probably had over 6 guys from his high school that he grew up with or he knew. We just had kind of a pipeline from Santa Margarita High School up there to Washington State. And, you know, like a couple of them, you know, like River Craycraft bounced around the NFL. And so they grew up together. Kyle Sweet, who was another really good receiver for us, and then our center, Riley Sorensen, and had a D-line with Nick Begg. And, you know, so we've had some of those guys from there and are really familiar with their program, and they do a really good job.
So Coach, in the past, you've had a lot of grad transfers come in, grad transfer seniors, and a lot of the guys, I'm not saying they're not as good, but they've been guys that weren't considered, I guess, draftable players or considered, you know, a potential first-round draft pick. So how do you approach that a little different with a guy who you know is coming in with the expectation that he's trying to be a first-round draft pick or get drafted high in the NFL draft? How do you coach a guy? I know you, in a sense, coach guys the same, but understanding that he comes in with a little different mindset than maybe some of your previous grad transfers.
You can go a little faster. You know, you can, because to start with, he's highly motivated and he's already got the picture and the feel of being a starter and the responsibility that goes with that. Mm-hmm. And so then as a result, you know, it's not like you're asking him to watch film. He's asking you what other films he can watch, what else. And so he's kind of going back in history, some of the other air raid teams I've had, to see what he can learn from those, you know, clear back to Texas Tech and things. And then, you know, so, you know, he's definitely a worker and a self-starter. And then, you know, doing what he can to convey it to the others, you know.
Do you almost go like, I mean, from a coaching perspective, like, I mean, I know sometimes there's other things that go into this, but you know, some of the things you're describing, you're like, why would they? I'm saying, I know guys sometimes leave on their own, but it seems like he's kind of a great catch as far as a grad transfer. You normally don't get them where they're this ready-made and this motivated to be great.
Well, he wanted to plan an offense where he threw the ball a lot. He had a lot of exposure to us again through the players he knew and grew up with that played for us, you know. And then so he was already kind of attracted to what we were doing, and he was a guy that we were already on at Washington State, and then I suddenly got the job at Mississippi State, and you know, we just sort of transferred all the energy and focus to Mississippi State, which and he is excited about those the receivers. I mean, we have some tall guys. Some have done some stuff. Some are just really good potential guys that can run, you know, big targets too. So, but he's used to that at Stanford. I mean, at Stanford, remember they had those two monster tight ends. It kind of used to piss me off because we'd have them bottled up, and then we'd double cover one of those tight ends, and he'd throw the ball up, and that guy, you know, the one guy was like 6'8" or whatever, and he'd reach over the top of two of our defenders' heads and just grab it. And then, no, he's, you know, he's used to big targets because you know, Washington State, we were a little smaller. We had a few tall guys on the outside, but you know, inside, if you can't find a great big guy, you get some little guy that can wiggle around and is always a little bit open, you know, just because you can change direction and hit him and tell him to let it rip, you know.
Well, speaking of tight end, Coach, I mean, for the last couple of years, you know, Washington State hasn't really used a tight end. At Mississippi State, we're tight end heavy. I mean, we have some athletic guys, tall, big, fast guys that can excel in the receiving game. Talk about, you know, how you plan to, I guess, mold those guys into, I guess you could say, wide receiver / tight ends in your offense.
Well, I've always liked tight ends when you can get them. I've not necessarily had the luxury of having enough on my team. Okay. Because you consider a tight end, and if you think about, okay, yeah, we want a tight end. Well, just go to the mall or the grocery store, and you'll quickly discover God didn't create too many tight ends. He only made a few of them. And now Mississippi State, just like you say, has a lot of tight ends, which is exciting to me. And so, like on my teams in the past, like at Washington State, you know, to have a good defensive line, you know, you got to fill out your DN slots, and athletically, a lot of times, you know, your DN and the tight end, you're talking about the same skill set, and if you run out of people for DN, I'll tell you a guy that would have been a great tight end guy I had at Washington State named Logan Tago, and he was from Samoa. And Logan, well, we could get him on the field sooner as a defensive player, and we needed defensive ends. And because, you know, with receiver, you can get a guy there to kind of mark the spot and, you know, have a skill set, even if he's not a big guy. But D-end, I mean, I can't put any of those short guys there at D-end. You know, I can't,
No.
you know, here, run across, sack the quarterback, put your arms up too. That guy's going to come in, put his arms up, and the quarterback's going to laugh, you know. I mean, if you have enough DNs, which we do at Washington or at Mississippi State, well then those guys that in addition can catch, you can put them at tight end. And I'll tell you what's really powerful, and we might be able to do this. If you can go out there on the field at any given time, have two big tight ends and move them around, and Well, so what you're saying with your tight end, you're saying, all right, you're as big as the guy, you know, if they put a linebacker on you, you're as big as this guy, but you're more athletic, so we can throw it to you. And then if they put the safety on you, well, you're just going to beat that guy up, okay? Whereas the little guy, what you're saying is, all right, if they put the linebacker on you, the linebacker's screwed because he can't come even close to keeping up with you. And then if they put the safety on, and you're saying, all right, well, you're athletic enough to still catch balls on him, and so that's the game you're playing. And then, but if you have, say, a big guy at the position and a little guy at the position, I mean, then they're screwed. Then you're throwing fastball, curveball, fastball, curveball. It's not just a fastball every time or a curveball every time. Then you're mixing your pitches, so to speak, you know.
All right.
All right.
So I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be outstanding.
So, Coach, kind of just going with that and just talking about one of the big positions of concern is receiver, and obviously you're going to need time to kind of see what those guys are and develop them, especially guys that are transitioning from tight end to receiver. The NCAA, I guess.
Well, those tight ends, and this is going to be fun too. Just think about that. Those tight ends. I'm not necessarily just putting them with their hand on the ground so that they're, you know, they're just another tackle out there. Oh no, they're this big old guy. We have a number of them. He's going to stand up there tall and proud about an 8-yard split sometimes, a 1-yard split sometimes, a 3-yard split sometimes. And, you know, if you're the defender, I mean, we're basically saying, well, what do you think of that? You know, and hopefully it turns out for us, you know.
So I guess basically like what I was getting at is more saying that the NCAA kind of allowed y'all to have more time with the kids, given the fact that you lost spring practice, but they kind of had an extended preseason schedule. How helpful was that for them to be able to allow y'all, I guess, to have more access to the players, you know, allow y'all a little bit of time, well, it's walkthroughs. And honestly, with your style of offense, it isn't as important to have the more physical spring practice. People getting hit. It might be more about precision and accuracy. So was it very important for you to get that additional time to work with kids?
Oh, I think it's critical. I think that it's critical to have that. I think that, you know, and like you just said, to get to know everybody, you know, because there's 4 teams in our conference that are new staff, and I think it's very important. I think the one thing we're going to have to be a little careful of, because you have quite a chunk there that's all packed together, you know, like once you're allowed to start, if they start on time, and I hope they do, you have quite a chunk of time just packed in there. We've got to be smart about how we use it. You know, all of a sudden you have 8 weeks, and if you grind everybody into the ground for 8 straight weeks, you may not have as much left for the season as you want. And so we got to be smart about that. It's got to be a combination of the physical and the tough, but also the mental and the precision. Because, you know, football is a game of execution. That's the most important thing about football is execution. And you want them to have a full tank physically out there when they run and they take off, because, you know, you don't want dead legs. We have a saying, Ruffin McNeil used to say this, and I copied it and used it ever since. Ruffin McNeil would say, if you have slow legs, you've got a slow mind, you know. And, you know, because, you know, fatigue, you know, going out there with fatigued people, they're not going to be as sharp and as quick and as, and you know, able to fire away as easily. And so we have to keep them fresh, and we're going to have to make good decisions on that when we find out what our calendar's going to be.
So, Coach, how do you kind of adjust, I guess, going with the 6-week extended practice, which in some ways is probably going to be good? And I know before the show you kind of asked about, you know, how people are with COVID. So, given the fact that y'all had a few players test positive, I know you can't say names because of HIPAA and all that good stuff, but, like, how do you adjust coaching knowing that, I mean, what if we're in the middle of the season and KJ ends up getting COVID. So, you at least have 2 weeks, maybe longer, that you're going to be without your starting quarterback. So how do you kind of adjust to that, knowing going into the season that something like that can happen?
Yeah, you play the next guy. You play the next guy.
Next Bulldog up.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you don't have any choice. I mean, it's the same as if somebody injures their ankle, you got to play the other guy. So, I mean, and so you try to create some depth as you go, and that's the other thing, making the most out of your reps and making them sharp and precise so that you're as fortified as you can be. If something like that happens, so this COVID business, we've got to try to keep everybody safe as we can, and anybody that gets it, get them recovered as quick as we can.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so
it's funny. It's funny nowadays. I mean, I'm sure you guys experience this. Does it ever irritate you that people cough for a reason, and you really want to cough and let it rip, but you don't dare because you don't want to scare the hell out of everybody around you. You don't want them just heading for the hills. You get the little tickle back there, and you want to let it fire, but you don't dare.
I have a funny story with that. I know it was probably a month or so ago, or maybe a month and a half ago. I was in the store and I was sneezing because it was allergy season. So during allergy season, I tend to sneeze and cough up. Yeah, during that season. So I'm in the store and I sneezed a couple times, and I was walking up and the lady like, "Hey, could you stand over there while you sneezing and puffing and doing all that stuff?" I was like, "Oh my goodness." I felt like such a miscreant or something. Like, I was like, "Wow, I just sneezed. It's allergy season." So I get you, Coach.
Well, if people weren't too sensitive to it, because in this day and age they'll lose their mind. But maybe the time will come where if we just need a little privacy or space, we can fire out a sneeze or a cough. We get some room.
Yeah, I don't think you can sneeze in public for at least another 2 years. I don't think.
Oh, they'll get that. They will get mad now.
Like, oh my God, I was sneezing. It was some dust.
Well, that's a funny thing. People are supposed to be able to cough and sneeze to get stuff out of the system, but everybody's trying to swallow that stuff up nowadays because they don't want to scare everybody else.
Right. So Kendrick,
yes, sir.
I know that y'all got questions that need answers over there in Moss Point, Mississippi, or Pascagoula, wherever.
Hold on. All you gotta do is read, man. All you have to do is it's literally everywhere.
Our former defensive back coach is from Pascagoula, but you trolling, Arthur.
Anyway,
and he's a rebel. No,
I did. As you see, somebody came on and interrupted the podcast, and I welcomed him on because I've considered him as a friend. Been knowing him for about a year now. He's the offensive coordinator and assistant head coach of the Moss Point High School Tigers. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome Mr. Ray Pickering onto our podcast today.
How y'all doing, man?
We are
all right.
Man, nice to be
Coach
with y'all. Coach Leach, it's an honor, man, to be on with you and hear from you and stuff. I know you just got to Mississippi, but I think it's a wonderful thing to have you here, man, because once you came, several quarterbacks that I know that surround me and kids that try to get with me just to get some exposure and stuff, their eyes lit up once you came into the state. So we're very honored to have you in the state of Mississippi. Wanting to just aerate that thing and throw that thing around and stuff like that. And so I'm proud to have you here in the state of Mississippi. My question to you, Coach, man, is just how do you look? What are your expectations of just wanting to take Mississippi State to new heights, to where it's y'all are in the discussion year in and year out, and what type of players do you want? because I pretty much can, pitch it like that and get your kids and stuff like that. So just, talk to me about what kind of kids you want.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Well, first of all, the state of Mississippi's got great high school football, and I'm truly honored to be a part of it. And that's what attracted me to Mississippi was the commitment to football and the toughness of the kids there, and the how prolific they are as far as those players going on to other places, and whether it's at college or the NFL or something like that. And I'll tell you, and I think there's a lot of this in Mississippi, and I'd like to hear your thoughts on this too, but my best players, you want the most talented guys you can get. I mean, what kind of players do you want? Well, as big and fast as possible for whatever position they play. But the thing is you want guys that really love football. I mean, because guys that really love football will try to find ways to improve. They'll find ways to get better. They'll be working when other guys aren't. And ones that just got, and some kids are tougher than others, but that just got that little streak of toughness in them. And that toughness mixed with the really loving football. I think that's what takes it to another level, another notch. And we've all had players where, they weren't particularly talented, and then where we're going, well, I don't know, those guys around him, they're just, this guy's taller, this guy's faster, this guy's this guy's that. And then, but those guys that really love football, that have that streak of toughness that, that where they're going to push themselves to achieve at a high level, have a funny way of surviving, excelling,
right,
and even surprising us as coaches.
I got you. So I'm real good friends with like Mario Cristobal and Gus Malzone and Tom Allen and Josh Gaddis up in Michigan and Brennan Marion at Hawaii. So I got a lot of folks that I detail with, Coach, and what I do is try to pick their brains, man, because one day I want to be like you guys and get to that stage, and I'm actually at a good pace right now, trying to get there and stuff like that. But like for instance, when I talk to Tom Allen, he always talks about Leo and his values of his culture, and so Leo means love each other. And so I was wanting to see. I want to just pick your brain on what do you think your values are? Do your values even change coming to Mississippi? Do you keep the same values that you've had, or do they change as you come into Mississippi?
I think they stay I think they stay the same. I mean, you're always trying to work on your process and make it better in your process. And I don't even like that way of putting it, but it does sort of assign a lot of thoughts to one word. The trouble is it's too general. But anyway, your approach to doing things and trying to elevate and make players as good as they can possibly be, that's what I'm defining as your process. You're always trying to get that better. You're always trying to improve it. And it's all the combination of whether it's motivation or lifting weights, how you bring it all together to make it as strong as you possibly can. But a locker room that cares about each other, I think, is very important. I think, and that's why, a locker room needs to be a player's sanctuary where they can have a lot of trust within that locker room. And
I agree.
And sometimes with that social media stuff, you got to be careful, and you got to educate guys that stuff in the locker room. You're supportive of all the members of that locker room, and right. Because you have their back, they have yours, and that is love each other, and then I think the best the key players that really it's important to them and buy into the message. That's what really elevates your locker room, and you do it with you know, the best guys that you have, and they're not always the most talented players. They're the guys that you know, that really buy in and are self-starters themselves. And some guys are quieter guys, and they lead by example. And then some just by position, you know, the guy that calls the defensive signals, like your middle linebacker or your quarterback, you know, the fact that they talk to the other players more on the field, I mean, puts them in an elevated position just because they're doing the talking. Your center on your offensive line, if he's making the line calls. But I've always thought the best position to really have a great locker room is offensive line, because you have more of them. You know, they're big guys, so people are going to listen to them rather than, you know, and numerically they're the biggest number you have in your locker room. And then, and that's not always the case. And then the other thing, and if it's not, then, you know, you just have to empower as many guys as you possibly can around it. But and the other thing is that helps the O-line thing, you got more of them. They're big guys, so guys aren't going to cross them typically. And then the other thing is O-line tends to run in packs. I mean, if you see one offensive lineman, you're going to see 8 of them, you know.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think you know, and then our number one goal is be a team, and then we spend, you know, really the whole year and years talking about what be a team means, you know. And I mean, and the whole the message, generally speaking, is that the team and everybody together, you know, working together, everybody gains more if we all work together. Right. And sometimes that means individual sacrifice, and then don't do anything that hurts the team, because you don't just hurt yourself. Yeah, you hurt you know, everybody with regard to the team, and
right.
And you know, try to uphold that on behalf of the guys around you.
Right. So, Coach, you know, being that we do have 2 of Moss Point's finest coaches, you know, I don't know if we also have a former Mississippi State quarterback, Kevin Fant, was also a Moss Point Tiger, right, Kendrick?
Absolutely. Well,
so,
we had 2 of them. We got Kevin Fant and Derek Tate.
Oh, yeah, Derek Tate as well.
Yeah.
So, of course, you know, a lot of Bulldogs may not know this, but there was a Moss Point to Maroon pipeline started in the 70s by one gentleman by the name of Ray Kostick. He's our all-time leading tackler, and that led to other Moss Point standouts as Bob Lee, Gerald Jackson, Raymond Payton, Bobby Molden, Kenny Johnson, Jackie McCorvey, Ernest Barnes, and George Wansley. And
got one more. You missed one.
That's pretty impressive.
Who did I leave off, Kendrick?
Tight end.
No. Eric Butler.
Yeah, Eric
Butler.
Yeah.
So what do you say?
Wait, you got one more. The reason why I said this is because he's one of the biggest names from Moss Point. He was the offensive coordinator for most of our championship. Bill Lee. He also came from Moss Point and played at Mississippi.
I said Bill Lee.
I mean, you went too fast, I guess.
Okay. So what do you say?
He can rattle off those names, though, can't he? I mean, that's. I mean, if somebody asks me to do that to my roster, I don't think I can do that.
You know. So what do you say to getting that Moss Point to Maroon pipeline started back, Coach Leach?
I think we've got to. I think it's very important, and I'll tell you. Well, I've read about Moss Point for years and years in the newspaper. You know, I mean, they're a legendary program, and some people in Mississippi might feel like they're just legendary in Mississippi. That's not true. They're legendary nationally. And you know, I heard about Moss Point when I was there in California, and then and that's like, shoot, that was in the late '80s, you know, and we need a pipeline from all the schools in Mississippi, but Moss Point is also a place of distinction where others will follow.
Right. And then since you made a trip to Jackson, Callaway High School, my alma mater, and of course all the other Jackson high schools, you know, get that pipeline there too. We don't need them going to Ole Miss.
No, we don't need any of them going there.
You know. So Arthur.
Hey, Coach Leach, this is Coach Ray Pickering again, man. I'm going to step away due to some things I got. We're renovating our field house, trying to get stuff up. We do have several players that are on y'all's board, several players that have been offered. Like I said, I think it'll be
violations.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just joking, but I
okay.
I want to get him in trouble.
Well, I'm
I
about to get out of here. So,
can't
Coach
talk about
Leach,
that.
I'll try my best to get up with you and get your information, get your number and stuff like that, and then we can get together and talk. And I think it'll be beneficial for kind of like both of us that we do that and stuff like that. And so, like I said, my name is Coach Ray Pickering from Moss Point. I'm the associate head coach and the offensive coordinator. Been the coordinator for 13 years, Coach. I coached at Daphne High School in Alabama and Laurel High School and Hattiesburg High School. And so,
Coach, you might need to add him to your staff, Coach.
Yeah, the
I got my
your
master's
staff.
in depth.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, I look forward to meeting you and then spending some time, and let's get something rolling.
Yes, sir. We'll get something rolling. Hey, appreciate you, fellas, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna get out of this thing.
My man to drop the resume.
Hey, Coach Leach, what you tell him? Hey, every day's an interview, right?
You gotta shoot your shot when you can.
Every day's an interview. I'll tell
Every day's an interview. Every day's an interview.
Hey,
so the next time he hear Ray Pickering, he's gonna know where he met Ray Pickering at.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Hey, I'm out, fellas. I appreciate it.
I'll tell you, and that's a great saying. The other thing that, and I'm not a fancy dressing guy, and so then they'd say, yeah, but the clothes make the man. Okay, well, I've struggled with the clothes make the man part, because I want to wear whatever is in front of me and put it on and roll,
All right. So I guess that this brings us to the dead end of the interview. So two things. Number one, could you have possibly anticipated that this whole COVID-19 thing would have came in before you could even coach a game? And how long do you think it's going to take for y'all to be able to get back to football? Business as usual.
Business as usual. That's a tough question. Well, first of all, I don't think anybody anticipated the COVID, at least not the, how much of a change and everything that it developed into. Then the other is, despite the fact we get to start somewhere around mid-July, it's really not going to be normal there. I think camp is about the first time it's really, really going to be normal. You might have something that is like a normal off season, the very end of July, but other than that, I think it won't really be normal until August.
Oh, that sounds about right. So, last thing that we got for you. To those people right now who are still on the fence about the state flag issue and the senators who are going to be voting, who are still on the fence, what would you say to them to give them that extra boost that they need in making their decision?
Well, what I would say is that it's kind of what I've been saying from the beginning. I mean, because regardless of what side anybody's on the flag issue, regardless of what side they're on, and there's all the reasons. You can fill a building with all the reasons, in the history and things. But the simple and most significant one is if you're going to have a symbol of your state, and it's to unify and instill pride in the citizens of your state, it needs to represent them and be embraced. And we need something that does that. We need something that when somebody from the great state of Mississippi sees it, they're immediately proud and feel unified. They feel together. They feel like we're all together because we're all Mississippians, and and this makes us proud. You know, like something that, you know, whether it's a parade, a football game, or somebody moves out of state, or even if they're in state, you know, they're proudly displaying it. I mean, and to the point of almost being annoying, like people with the Texas flag are. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like think of Texas in this way, like with regard to their flag. I mean, the state of Texas loves that flag, and they'll put it everywhere, and they'll put it.
Don't get me started
so
on
many
that.
places. They'll put it so many places you eventually get tired of seeing it. Okay, if you're from out of state. Now, if you're a Texan, you know, you think about it when you wake up and when you go to sleep. But you know, people from other states probably get tired of seeing it, which just makes it such a great symbol for the state of Texas. And we need something in the state of Mississippi that we can rally around in that fashion, I think.
Yeah, Coach, I didn't mean to cut you off, AJ, but I concur with that. As even here in Texas, as you know, they don't even just love the flag. They even have to, just like with the national anthem, they even have an anthem for the flag, for those that don't know.
Actually, somehow I already knew that because I researched it on my own, because, you know, I'm a student of history. So,
Yes.
Coach Leach, it is great to have you on again. Finally got to clear the air on a few things, and, you know, anytime that we can have you on here, it is always fantastic. All right. So, any of you guys have anything very brief to say? Very brief, mind you.
Hell State, go Dogs.
All right, Jeremiah, pardon shot.
Just kind of going, Coach Leach was saying, like, hey, the SEC commissioner, they just said, no, it's a lot of SEC teams aren't coming to Mississippi. So just want to throw that out there for people that are still making their decisions.
You know things are bad when Georgia and Alabama is calling us racist. I mean, yeah, you
Georgia
gotta.
can't say nothing with that flag they got.
That's like the guy from Alabama. They're like, the best thing I ever did was to leave Mississippi, and he's like, really? You
Really?
went to Alabama,
Yeah.
but whatever. Ken, pardon shot.
Yeah, I just it's been fun. Thank you, Coach Leach, for joining us, and I just want to give another shout out to Mars Point. Another shout out to DL Sanders, Sunny Days Shade. Look up on Facebook. All right, y'all have a great day. Hail State, go Dogs, and go Tigers.
Okay, and
All right.
for my people back in Greenville, it's a great day to be a Hornet, as always. And I got on my Shanika McKinney shirt, you know, Crown by Him LLC. Shout out to her. And we normally would say praise the Lord and go Dogs, but since Coach Vic Schaefer wants nothing to do with Mississippi State University no more, I would just say, okay, bye.